Hello, everybody. Perfect timing. I'm here 5:30 p.m. in Helsinki live. Today we have a very special guest. I will be talking to one of our artisan partners, the founder of the group Aftertaste. She is also an old friend who I've had the privilege of working with in a NGO back in 2010. So long back. But let's see if we can get her on. I see the request. Right. Yes. Perfect. Hi, Shalini, can you hear me properly?
Hi, Pukhraj. Yes, I can hear you properly. Yes, thank you. Thank you
Amazing.
for
So
having me. Yeah.
yes, of course. And I've been working with Shalini for a long time now, but this is the first time we are actually going live. It's been an idea
Right.
we played around with, but never happened. So excited to have you. I was just telling everybody that you are the founder of Aftertaste, which is one of the groups that we work with. And you're based out of Mumbai. But before we jump into like a proper introduction, can you tell me what's behind you? Because I have some posters, but I'm more interested in what is behind you.
Yeah, sure. So this is the tree of aftertaste. This is hand painted by our incredible artisans, our women of aftertaste. Each leaf has the name of each team member, and it sort of signifies, that this is how we are all unified together. We are bound by struggles, hopes, aspirations, and on a unified journey, and growing together, just like this tree. And there are several leaves which are still vacant. So as we grow, we hope to have all these leaves filled with names of people who join us along this journey. And this tree is also a quintessential art that we do in Aftertaste, the tree of life, which is kind of our brand identity. So
Yes,
this kind of sums it all up, like the transformative power of art in
absolutely.
display.
And it actually reminds me of our past, which is we both were part of the Teach for India Fellowship. We both were teachers in Mumbai in
Right.
what we call, under-resourced communities. And it was one of the things we did to kind of make our classroom environment feel more positive and encouraging is to have art and have, all these posters. So it's also interesting because I think you've taken that life even into your current work.
Yes, very much so. Because, and also, I think as much as it's important to sort of have art in our place of work, like we did in our classrooms, I think for our women, it also signifies their identity. The art.
Mm.
So to see it on a daily basis, to have it up there in the studio, I think it was special for all of us, and it's a constant reminder of what we do, why we do.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, without further ado, I see there are people who are joining. Everybody, you should have a question mark button at the bottom right. If you have any questions for Shalini while we're talking, feel free to add it there because if you just comment, I might lose the question. So please put it there. But Shalini, let's just start with the first question, which is basically just introduce yourself and introduce what Aftertaste is.
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Pukhraj. And thank you, everybody who have joined in on a working day, evening. So, to share a bit about myself, the journey, and how it all started. So, Pukhraj, I think we met during the fellowship when we were teaching. But before that, like I actually worked for almost a decade in the corporate world as a technologist post my engineering. And I think while my corporate life continuously enriched me with learnings which I'm using till today, I think there was always this constant uneasiness and this realization of wanting to make a difference and looking at very different indicators for success versus what I witnessed around me. And I think I was very passionate for the cause of children's education and women empowerment since then, and it gradually got reinforced during those corporate days when I was actively doing CSR, corporate social responsibility work. And I think it finally came to a point where I just felt that no, I this is not my calling. I think my calling lies somewhere else. I did not have an answer, but I wanted to change the world in a very naive, optimistic way, and just took a plunge with a leap of faith. Applied for the Teach for India fellowship, and I think I moved to Mumbai with a suitcase and started teaching in a TFI classroom, in a Mumbai municipal classroom. And
So
that is where
yeah,
the
and can
seed
you
for,
a
yeah.
little bit about where you taught in Mumbai? What were kind of the environment that you were in? Because it's very much linked to the birth of Aftertaste, right?
Yes, that's right. Exactly. I think the seed for Aftertaste was sown in that municipal school classroom in Mumbai, where the children who came to the classroom were from the communities nearby. These are essentially low income communities in Mumbai, the Mumbai slums, as we call them here. Um, and I think everybody, Mumbai is a city of opportunities, is a city of migrants. People migrate to this maximum city in search for livelihood, and very much so most of our children's parents were the workforce of Mumbai, who constituted 50% of the population of Mumbai. But like many of you might be aware that we have a severe space crunch in Bombay. So 50% of Mumbai's population is actually living in 9% of the land space. So I think what we witnessed while teaching in the classroom, we got a first-hand kind of experience of how our children lived in the difficult living conditions. And of course, like the women, especially the women who sort of, they're mothers of the children, who dealt with existential struggles on a daily basis. So it's clearly a life which is where while their husbands were earning, but it is a life which is bereft of dignity because they live under such hardships. And I think while teaching the children during the fellowship, like Pukhraj, all of us, we spent a lot of time with the children in the community. And that is where I just felt that as a woman, when the mothers of the children shared their stories, they all had those same aspirations like each one of us. They wanted a better life for their families. They had dreams. They had some desires, little things. But I think the all they needed was probably a platform,
Hmm.
one to which could allow them to fulfill the economic deficit, because most of the mothers felt that education could really be a way to opportunities, and education is important. And of course, in a municipal school, it's also provided free by the government to a certain grade, till grade 7. So I think
Yeah,
most of the mothers thought that, yeah, we will educate, but what after this? So I think
right.
that got me thinking that if we could create a platform which would empower these women to first fulfill the economic deficit, and then empower them with the knowledge and skills, and build aspirations in them which would enable them to steer a different trajectory for their children. So that is how
And
it
it's so
happened.
interesting because, of course, in the education space, we work so closely with children, but you saw a very deep connection between mothers and their empowerment to then children's empowerment. So, if you can tell me, how did Aftertaste start? Like, because I know that the fellowship experience or the teaching experience is only 2 years. So what was this transition that from leaving, the kids, now you started to work with their mothers. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So, Pukhraj, I think it was more of a natural progression for me, because rather than a transition, because I
Hmm.
think once I started teaching the children, I think gradually I realized towards the end of the fellowship that the way to take this work that we have done with the children, the way to take this work forward would be next
Hmm.
to work with the mothers, so
Right.
that we could ensure that the children stay on the path and they have access to all the opportunities one day. And I think it was a natural progression. And I think, yeah, there was no looking back. So with that thought, it was a continuation. And of course, I could relate to some of the things the women experienced as another women. So
Right.
I think I saw it. I sort of perceived it that if we empowered the primary caregivers of the children, the end result would finally be, the children being on the path and having access to all the opportunities we dreamt of.
Absolutely. So, talk to me a little bit about when it started, how many
Yeah,
mothers you've already worked with, um, and why art?
right. So it started a year after my fellowship. Actually, it's 9 years now, in 2013, around this period. And
Wow.
yeah, and we started with four of the mothers whose children I had taught. These were women who with whom I had developed a connection, who would share their stories on a daily basis. And we started with their support in the community, in a little 8 feet by 8 feet room in the community. And back then, this particular community, Ambujwari, where Aftertaste is still working, where all the women come from, it did not even have electricity, roads, or water.
Hmm.
And we worked, and of course, things have changed. There has been a lot of development. There is electricity. It came 2 years after we started our work. And I think in that space, from the very beginning, when we decided to start, we wanted to create a model where the women would step out of their homes. Because,
Hmm.
that is the first step to shattering a small little glass ceiling. Because these women with whom we started had never done art, had never really held a pen or pencil, had never stepped out of their homes for working. So I think those were the women and who are still part of Aftertaste today. And yeah, their children are on a different path, which we'll share. And why art? I would say, I think that is what I knew. I think we wanted to choose. It could be any form of livelihood, right? We could have chosen something else,
Hmm.
and I think this was also something very difficult because this was something in which the women were completely not skilled in. So we
Right.
started with women who were completely unskilled, and
Hmm.
that has been the journey, actually, the entire skill transformation and also the personal transformation. Uh, because
And so,
I were
sorry, continue.
sorry, so I personally had an art and craft streak in me. I'm not a trained artist, I'm an engineer, but we used a lot of art in our classrooms. And
Hmm.
I think just the idea of extending it and using that. So to be honest, I think the first few months, it was a pilot to see that whether we can even use art to create products which can be sold, which will have, a market demand, a market value. And
Right.
but yeah, so and I think, yeah, I sort of transferred my skills and knowledge to the women. And
Hmm.
but I think gradually as we proceeded, I realized that I'm glad that we chose a medium which is very different from what they do on a daily basis,
Hmm.
because it is an aberration from your daily domestic chores. It is also something which instills in them the joy of creativity.
And absolutely. And I think having met the women and, spoken to them, you can very clearly see that they can articulate how they have grown, be it through skills, through,
Yes.
that you have shared, the different experts you have brought. So it's it's very evident the growth journey they've had. So talk to me about your biggest milestones in the last 9 years.
So I think I mean, there have been several milestones, but I think the first few started with, the first time our women not just went out of Mumbai to train 60 women in rural Gujarat. So that was like the first milestone that we sort of
Wow. I had
yeah.
no idea about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as we grew, I think we were all constantly trying. I think the women were instilled with a strong sense of professional ethics. So they always struck a balance between managing their domestic chores and being a professional artisan. and I think our model also was designed to do that. And I think as we grew, we started taking these corporate orders, and I think our first large corporate order that we did of 9,000 photo frames, I think that was like a big, it's instilled a big sense of achievement. And I think the other big milestone was like our moment of pride. The whole purpose of our women working have been the children, to educate the children. So I think when one of the first daughters of Aftertaste, the first lady who had joined her daughters, Elena, who would have dropped out of school had her mother not been working, she
Mm.
she completed her 12th and she completed her diploma in education and she became a teacher.
Oh,
So
the full
that the full circle. So to see the breaking that vicious circle and the full journey, I think that was the first milestone, and it's continued now. We can see that happening with all the families at
yeah.
Aftertaste.
And I remember when I last visited, you had two students, like children of your mothers, who were also working and supporting the growth of Aftertaste. So
Yes, yes.
that's also very incredible to see their role.
And I think I was just coming to that, Pukhraj, and you rightly said that. I think from the very beginning, our biggest win would be that we have been the continuous depth at which we have been working from day one. The
Hmm,
work has never been limited to the women. It has always been the women and their families. So,
absolutely.
and that depth has allowed us, has also instilled that sense of ownership and belonging in the team, and created this one large family.
That's such a beautiful point, because I do want to talk about the pandemic then, right? So it wasn't just about the women. When the pandemic hit India, and definitely the second wave, which was very scary, and people around the world, including in Finland, were watching by the scale at which the flu or the virus was spreading. I am very, very amazed and inspired by how Aftertaste dealt with that. So, can you tell people who are watching what your focus was during the pandemic, and how you continued to not just do the work, but keep the relationships as
Yeah,
meaningful as they were when everyone was in their home in lockdown?
right. Yeah, 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 truly so. Because, in fact, it would be surviving the pandemic, or rather staying afloat in the pandemic, is one milestone actually. Indeed,
Yes.
it was one of the toughest times. And I think we all were uh, sort of taken aback with the unexpectedness of the situation, the uncertainty which gradually unfolded. But I think what we did, and as an organization, is we constantly communicated on a daily basis. And there were the first 3 months when the city of Mumbai, which was the epicenter of the pandemic at that time in India, was completely shut. And just to see the city like this itself was a first time for all of us. But
Hmm.
what we did, we created, we firstly equipped all our women with devices so that we could all keep in touch. At least per family, there should be one device. And then the women also lived nearby in the community. So in both the communities, we sort of reached out to the next generation, some of the the older children, who became our point of contact. And constantly on a daily basis, Pukhraj, we would be creating videos, and we would be sending voice notes and videos. So the first step was to ensure their safety and well-being and
Hmm.
take care of their welfare. So to constantly generate awareness of COVID, how could they contract it? Also, I think when people were talking about social distancing, I think social distancing is not possible in a community in Mumbai. So
Yeah.
just accepting that, and then
Hmm.
trying to figure out a way around it. So that is what we did on a daily basis through videos which I created, we recorded, and we sent. And then there were these community messengers, our youth, who would sort of try to go and and talk to each of the women. And then we created little groups on WhatsApp, different learning groups on based on the different skills. And we sort of equipped the women with some stationery, some paper, and we started doing these online learning. Like there was no curriculum, no pressure. We would just do art, just send out some videos of some paper craft, and the women would just sit at home and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we also use this time to do a lot of digital literacy with them, with in collaboration with Tribes for Good. And the women during that time, they all learned to use, at least in every family, Paytm and Google Pay, which sort of empowered them to use digital modes of payment and avoid contact. And
Absolutely.
of course, all
And
our
it,
women had ATM cards, etc.
yeah, and I'm sure it must have accelerated just their comfort with technology as well, because I mean, it did that for the whole world, but to be given that training and that opportunity, within your group is amazing as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and when it came to the work, because work was shut, right? We
Yeah.
ensured that they continued.
Yeah. How did
Yeah,
you to stay afloat? Because
yeah,
what I remember you telling me is that even though there was a pandemic and you had the work was kind of on pause, you continued to pay the women monthly salary even when there was not enough work. So how
yeah.
did you make that decision, and how did you actually make it happen?
So I think, to be honest, those 3 months we had absolutely zero revenue,
Hmm.
and uh, and that time it was only possible, those 3 months, with the support which we received from all our supporters, our friends, some organizations, some corporate people, and a lot of individual friends and supporters of Aftertaste who came
Hmm.
forward and helped. And I think those 3 months we had to completely rely on support, because there was no way that the women could create products, and we did not even think of selling, because our focus was that. Of course,
Hmm.
the earnings were a basic salary, so that they could sustain, and they would
Yeah.
not have to depend, and they could at least sustain at home and have fulfill all the basic necessities without having to worry. And hence, none of the families at Aftertaste had a reverse migration, which was a common thing which we witnessed here.
Which was
So
happening
nobody.
for India, wasn't it? People
Yeah,
were going back to villages, people were leaving the slums, and you happened to like keep the women like in their homes and
yeah,
continued.
and
It was because they felt a sense of community, because most people were leaving because they wanted to go home to their family, but you created a family where they are.
yes, yes. We were all connected with each other. They felt that connection with each other, and they did not feel alone. They felt
Hmm.
we are in this together, and they derived strength from each other. And that is what sort of helped us to stay afloat also, because I think I also derived strength from them, because we were all, I think, anxious and apprehensive, and what next. And I think that is what sort of made us stronger, and it really brought the team together, because if you struggle together, if you face adversity together, you
Absolutely.
even, yeah,
Yeah, you stick together. And if you can stick together in the hard times, you will be fine long
yeah,
run.
yeah,
And honestly, Shalini, like this is a great opportunity for me to say this live in public. It's been just inspiring watching how you run the group, and you can see that amount of love and respect women have for you, because you do it with a lot of intention and a lot of love, and it's not just I run a women group and I'm just providing them livelihood, but you really care for all the members, be it the students or the mothers, as part of your larger family. And it's really, really inspiring to watch. Um, but with
thank you
that,
so
I would
much.
love to ask you last question. What is the larger dream? Like, what's the next big dream for Aftertaste?
So I think the big dream, of course, to see that each one of them, each of our families, they live a life of dignity, and we can see the families gradually breaking that vicious cycle. I can see the children now; they are in college. They are having access to the opportunities which education and exposure gives, and they are gradually aspiring, for that life. And it's beautiful to see that transition. And so I'm hoping that all the families are able to live that life of dignity and good health, because I think healthcare has been also something which
Mm.
has been a constant challenge. And at Aftertaste, we of course are limited because of the way we have been working one family at a time. We are so far limited to 45 families, and we hope that in the next
Not a,
5
that's a big
yeah,
number.
yeah, yeah, which is 200 family members, and we are involved on a daily basis. But we really hope that we can reach out to many more, and aftertaste can spread to at least 125 families and 500 family members by
Mm.
maybe 2025. And
And what
yeah,
can
I could.
brands they do? So, of course, everybody understands from my audience that I work with multiple groups. And, there are brands out there in Europe that do want to work with ethical partners who really care about the name. Do you have a wish to kind of grow your global community? Maybe there are some brands watching who might be interested in working with you. How can they reach out?
Yeah, sure. So we actually our work is we available on our website now, and the link is present in bio. And we have, I mean, they can directly reach out to us through social media. And I think as an entrepreneur, what we have, I have also faced is, I think Pukhraj, we are constantly walking this tightrope of striving for dignity
Hmm.
versus also making people realize that there is a, I mean, it is not just charity, yet dignity with empathy. So
Hmm.
also to our, like, I think one some of my, personally a challenge always is to price the products in a way where we are able to get work, and yet people are able to understand the dignity and story behind. So I hope to work with brands who
Hmm.
are able to sort of see that
Hmm.
and respect the dignity, the dignified livelihood that we are talking about here. And I think, yeah, that is the hope. And that so people can feel free to reach out to me. My number is also there. We have a number given on Instagram. You can write to me. I will share our email ID, and
Yeah,
I'll be happy to extend
absolutely. So for everybody watching, you could follow Aftertaste on the Instagram ID, aftertaste underscore
underscore
India.
India.
And of course, I'm happy to connect anybody watching with Aftertaste, with Shalini, because I truly believe they are incredible. We do very little products with them at this stage because we're growing business. We hope to grow along with them and be part of the journey. Yeah, Shalini, thank you so much for joining this night. So happy to find your time with what work to do with women in Aftertaste. Yeah, it
Thank you.
was my
Sorry.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pukhraj, for having, I mean, giving us me this opportunity, because I think so far we have shied away from Insta Live, and thanks to
You
you.
have. You this because your story needs to be heard. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing. It inspires me every day. Every time I think of, the partners we have and people like you who I get to work with. So I think you need to tell your story more.
Thank you so much. And yeah, for everyone out there, yeah, like, do I think you can see our products on our page, and as I shared, yeah, like every product has a story, and the products are the end result, but the journey is, the transformation of our women from being someone's mother, daughter, sister, to finding their identity as an artisan. So
Mm.
yeah, when you buy from Aftertaste, you know what you have been part of. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Pukhraj, for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shalini. Have a
Thank
lovely
you.
evening and talk
Yeah,
to you.
you too. Yeah, bye.
Bye.